are listening to the Metal Summit, your source for all things rock and roll.
Cool. Welcome. Thank you all so much, as always, joining us for your evening on the Metal Summit every week, right here with your favorite hosts. We got Psycho Steve, we got Jason, we got Angel. I'm Jay, but more importantly, we are joined this week with Black Veil Bride's Jake Pitts. Thank you so much for joining us, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. It's our pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you all to our Rebels and Wild Ones for joining us this evening to have a little bit of fun with Jake. And to start everything right off, man, we really can't go any other direction but jumping right into Restitch These Wounds because it comes out next week.
Yes, that's July 31st.
Absolutely. I've got mine on pre-order as well as I know many other fans do. But talk a little bit about putting the album together as well as the decision made behind re-recording the original album, because you definitely spearheaded this as far as producing it and mixing it, which is something that you've definitely been getting more into over the years for sure. But talk us a little bit about the decisions and the journey up to what will be the release next week.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's kind of been an ongoing idea for a long time. We actually, all the way back in 2013, we discussed the idea of how it would be cool to, make a reimagined version of this album, because at this point we had put out 2 more albums, and when you kind of would listen to Restitch These Wounds, Set the World on Fire, and Russian Vine, it was a thing of, the first record is insane musically, and there's songs that are there, there's fan favorites that are there, but the production, we didn't have a very big budget at all. We did record in the studio in North Hollywood, but we basically, the engineers that were working on the record, great guys, but we didn't have the money to pay them to work in the normal hours. So a lot of the album was done. I would go there with Andy when we were tracking vocals, and it would be one of the engineers worked at NRG Studios, which is a A-list studio, and then would come over when he was done working there, and we would track vocals from midnight to 4 a.m. And it was a very weird process, but it was kind of like pulling favors, trying to make the album happen, because we wanted to do it as much as we could our way, and it was just very rushed. We didn't have, like I said, we didn't have the budget, so we didn't have the luxury of time to sit in there and make sure everything was perfect. It was kind of just record it. We had the songs, and it wasn't mixed properly by a mix engineer. It was just kind of done, and we got what we got, and it was okay, I mean, we're gonna roll with it. And fortunately, the fans are there. They picked up the album. It debuted on the top 200 charts, I think, at number 34. It was mind blowing. It did really well, and we were all just kind of stunned at how well it did. So the idea was to essentially, like I said, we discussed it in 2013, even possibly re-recording it, and I actually ended up re-recording all the guitars and bass at one point in 2013. Unfortunately for me, I did not record DIs. Like I said, I really got into mixing probably about 5-6 years ago, and really took that production path. And when it came time to actually do this, I went back and looked at what I had done, and I was like, it's not as good as what I can do now. So we redid it again. So little fun fact there, the guitars were actually already all re-recorded, and a lot of the solos I did already spice up back then, like I did on this current version, but I kind of redid that again as well. So everything was re-recorded once again, all the bass, all the guitars, every single note, everything. There is not one element from the original recording that is in any of the mixes. It's all 100% redone. I redid all the programming. I mean, you can listen to it and you can tell that there's there's obviously some different sounding, different elements there, but yeah, just kind of coming together to do it. It was a cool thing that we thought, as a 10-year anniversary from the first album coming out. What a cool thing to make a reimagined version of it with a much better sounding production and be able to kind of relive those glory days when the band first started to explode and kind of bring that back. And that's kind of coinciding with the August 1st live stream show that we're doing from the Whiskey, performing this album front to back in its entirety for the first time and probably only time. So that's kind of how it all came together. It's been a very long process, and but it made sense to do it at the 10 years.
Absolutely, for sure. Before I kick it over to one of the guys, there's one particular question I wanted to ask you when it came to this album, because for many of the Black Veil Brides fans, and I'm sure are aware of this as well as some that really may not, my curiosity when it came to this was you personally getting to do the Carolyn song again, because that song, for people that aren't familiar with, is very dear to you personally. Was it difficult working that song, playing it again, even listening to it again, or are you happier now, really getting to put like some bang behind it?
Well, I mean, like here's kind of this. I think there's kind of a misconception of this song. So, my mom, I never really got like too personal with this, but I'll talk a little bit about it. So, ever since I was like maybe 4 or 5 years old, my mom was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and so she suffered with mental illness basically my whole life, and she was in and out of different like I don't know what you call them, like homes where it was kind of like, I don't want to say like a mental institute or something like that. It wasn't like that, but in and out of like hospitals and these homes where people would monitor people and help try to get them on the right medications, etc. And so that was kind of like a lot of my childhood, was going to see my mom at these places, and it was not at home. And then in 2001, I left Idaho. I went to Minnesota, and I actually lived with my mom. My mom ended up moving back to where her family is from. Fast forward to me taking my journey to, ending up in LA, and the initial idea of this song was written in 2006 when, my sister called me and didn't have great news. Like, my mom had stopped taking her medication, and her social worker had to take her and put her back in this home place for like 3 months, and it just really bummed me out because, it just, it's something that's affected me my whole life. And so I got really sad, and I was working some stupid job at the time, and I went home and I just picked up my guitar, and the music to Carolyn is what came out of it. So I recorded that, the first concept of it, which pretty much was the exact same thing we recorded on Restitch these ones. Maybe a tiny bit different, but I never really got the chance to fully like produce that where I'm at with my musical skills and production skills now. So this was initially, the idea was recorded in 2006, and then I, at the time, not really being good with like lyric and melody, I didn't know how to put any of my feelings into words. So I kind of told Andy about this. I was like, this is kind of like what happened with this song when I wrote the music to it. So he was like, well, I'm gonna take a stab at it. I'm gonna do the best I can to kind of express how I think how you would feel. And he did it great. The lyrics are beautiful and the melodies are great. And being able to revisit that song was kind of something I was very excited for when we started it. But I was also a little nervous because I didn't really know what I wanted to do yet. I didn't really know where I was going to take it. The song's not like a crazy different song or anything, but I just wasn't sure what I was going to do. So when it came to like editing the drums and everything, I edited just from front to back, and Carolyn was the last song on the album, so I edited that song last. And then, funny enough, I ended up producing out that song first, so I then worked backwards kind of. So I ended up, like, after I edited drums in that one, I just kind of got sucked into the song, and I started messing with it, and that turned into several days of me just on my own, kind of like messing with piano ideas and some synths and putting some electronic influence in there a little bit. And then just really kind of like when we tracked drums, CC we didn't know what we wanted to do either. We wanted it to be different, and so he played. I don't know. We must have had like 80 different drum takes of ideas, and I ended up just putting together what sounded the best. And I think drum wise, it fits the vibe of the song much more what I initially would have envisioned it, and just kind of giving it a little more beef and balls behind it, but keeping it very beautiful with the pianos and the acoustic guitars and the cool leads. Like I think one of the biggest changes is probably the intro lead is completely different. It's just a one solo guitar kind of beautiful lead intro thing instead of this kind of annoying dual lead that's just when I listen back kind of seems like it doesn't really need to be there. So I felt like it was fun to revisit it and give it something that's a little more like tasteful. And I just, it took me a while. I probably spent maybe like a week just really trying to figure out what I wanted to do with that song. Another thing that I hated on the original is that there was no ending. It was just a fade out. So I wanted to change that and give the song an actual ending. So I did that as well.
Nice, man. Absolutely. And we appreciate you talking a little bit about that, Jake. We know that, stuff, those type of topics, they aren't always really easy. So we definitely appreciate that from you.
Yep.
So, Psycho Steve, let's kick it up to you, my good sir.
Okay. So, first of all, thank you for taking the opportunity to speak with all of us.
Sure.
I'm a little bit of a late bloomer because I'm more of an old school metal fan, but I've grown to appreciate your music and many other bands of your genre. The question is, with all the bands that you have toured with and everything, are you, like, besides going on the tour with them and your bandmates, of course, this is, like, one of my go-to questions. Is there any band that you could say that you're, like, friends with, that you actually, like, hang out with pre-COVID? Like, you call them and say, hey, let's go out and grab a bite to eat, or anything like that?
I mean, yeah, there's been, I mean, pre-COVID, I mean, there's been bands like in the scene that we hung out with in Hollywood. So in Hollywood, this was back in like 2016. One of the guitar player from All Time Low and this guy, they opened up a bar in Hollywood called The Rip, and it became for a while. I don't know how long it existed. Maybe like a year. It was around maybe a year and a half, and then it just kind of like I guess it just fell apart. I don't know, but that was kind of a place in Hollywood where if you had like nothing to do on a Friday or Saturday night, it was just you go there, and there's going to be all your band dude friends there. We could say Falling in Reverse, Crown the Empire, and just all kinds of people of Mice and Men. So it was really kind of a place where you didn't even have to like call somebody up like, hey, like, where are you going tonight? It was you just go there, and there was always going to be somebody there. There's going to be, YouTubers or whatever that are popular. It was just kind of a cool thing. There was always something to do on the weekend. Like if you didn't have anything else going on, just go there, and it became really popular. Like the place would be just slam packed, and of course, being from a pretty well known band, we get the VIP treatment where we get to just go right in on guest list every time and free drinks and stuff. And so it was really fun, and it was kind of sad to see that place go. I don't live down in Hollywood anymore, but I did at the time. So it was like 2 minutes down the street, and I'm there. It was a cool place to go and hang out with guys. So yeah, definitely. Now, not so much because we're just everybody's stuck,
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right.
Absolutely, for sure. Jason, how about yourself there, my friend?
Hey Jake, how you doing? So I noticed
I did
that.
not hear him.
I can't hear him either.
Yeah, Jason, we're having a
All
hard
right.
time hearing you for a second, buddy.
How about now?
Oh, there you go.
Okay. All right. So I've noticed that like on social media, you guys do what you call behind the veil. I personally think that's pretty cool. It's kind of like a behind the scenes type of thing. and as you know, but who was the brains behind that, and uh, was it you, or like how did that all start? I think it's a very interesting addition because it kind of brings the fans and listeners into your world as a band member.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, I'm not going to take credit for this idea. Basically, Andy is, so much of the ideas behind everything. But of course, the group group effort in deciding if it's something we're going to do or not. So the idea came up when we all kind of, after kind of being on hiatus and whatnot, we started meeting up and discussing the ideas of where, like, what we got to do for this band forward. And we started discussing the idea of doing what became the Night duology, the two songs. We wanted to do something, these were like riffs and ideas that we've had for forever. And we just never got around to really putting them together fully, or finishing the idea, or putting a vocal melody on it or anything. So the idea was, why don't we do, we'll start doing duologies, and we'll put two new songs out, and we'll do music videos for them both, and photo shoots, and all the whole thing. And the guys came over here in my studio, and we started working on stuff. And then the idea kind of came up with, why don't we, like Andy does his podcast on Patreon, and he's like, well, we can do like this whole thing and call it Behind the Veil, where we give people an exclusive look behind everything we're doing. So initially, I think that the concept initially was, we're going to film a documentary, and we're just going to put it out with the re-record with 360 Swim. So that was the initial idea, and we started filming stuff when we were recording the Night duology, and then the whole time doing 360 Wounds when we were drum tracking, guitar tracking, when I was mixing here, doing vocals, Jinx doing violins here. And that's kind of when it took a turn of, like, before anything had come out yet, it was like, well, we were filming a whole documentary, but then it turned into the idea of, why don't we do like these mini-sodes of like an ongoing thing, because we started having a lot of fun working together again, and it kind of just sparked it's almost like a rebirth of the band from 10 years ago. It's like, we get to start again, and I think that idea turned into, well, why don't we do this thing on Patreon? It's $1 a month, and there's like a new episode every week, and it's, instead of doing a one-time documentary and putting that out, it's an ongoing thing. So there's constantly new content. So it's a really cool thing, which I don't think many bands do this, if any.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Behind the look into when we're tracking, or going back and talking about albums and how we made them, or tours, and just kind of revisiting the last 10 years, but also moving forward into what's next for the band. Like I said, we're working on a new album right now, so it's just an ongoing thing that as we're working on things, and as things come out, we're able to release the episodes talking about those things and whatnot, and showing behind the scenes in the studio, or when we film the music videos. It's just it's something that I think is very cool. As a music fan, when I was growing up, I didn't have all these things like Twitter and Instagram and YouTube, and people being able to put out all this content, and get to see all this behind the scenes stuff. You had to like either see it in a magazine, or watch it on TV, or like literally go buy like the Slipknot DVD or the Pantera DVDs, those kind of things. And you had to like go buy those in the store and watch them. So with technology now, it's like it's just everything's so readily available to you. It's a cool thing. So it's something for us to do. It's $1 a month, which I don't even know if that covers the cost of production to do this, but that's essentially the idea. Is just we want to charge as little as we can so people can watch it, but so we can cover the cost of the guys who put it together and make the episodes happen every week.
Cool.
Awesome.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Nice.
For sure. With this kind of a show, we definitely are familiar with that type of style, with, putting things together, getting the connections right, and making it enjoyable to everybody that's watching.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah. Speaking of people that are watching, and how about yourself there, Angel? Why don't you chime in there, good sir?
Yes, I have a question about touring. How do you decide when you put out a new record? How do you decide which new songs to actually play live?
That's a good question. I mean, obviously the first answer would be whatever we decide, like say the first single is, or what could potentially be singles. It's kind of a thing. I think what we feel are the stronger songs. Obviously, the singles we got to play those live. Those tend to be fan favorite songs. So singles are always we got to play those. Um, it's kind of a thing of a little combination of after that, depending on what we want to play, it's just what songs we all agree that we think are badass songs and would go over really well in the live show, where we can fit them into our set from pre-existing songs. It's just kind of like putting together our set list and then picking and choosing like where we can throw new stuff in. And so, we've tried like new songs from Vale, like The Outsider. It's a great song. It's one of my favorites on that album. But there was something about it live. I think we played it live like once or twice. Something about it live, it's a slower tempo, so it just felt sluggish in the set compared to everything else. It's almost like you have this tempo of where you're going, and sometimes you're going to bring the energy down with more of a ballady song, and then you're going to kick into high gear with like a heavier, faster one. This one's like a heavy song, but it was just slow and it's dragging, and we all kind of felt like, I don't know, that one just dragged. And it's just kind of a personal thing between all of us that we decide what we think is best. There's songs that we would play that, some of us might not be like the favorite song to play, but it's comfortable as far as like musicianship playing it. A huge part is for Andy's vocals, especially with this new stuff. Andy has progressed as a vocalist like incredibly over the last few years. He's singing higher and hitting notes that, I'm shocked. I'm like, holy shit, this dude is like singing higher than he's ever sang, and he continues to get better and better. A lot of it though was that he's expanding his range, which is great. A lot of it is the strain on vocal. If it's a chorus that is just super high and it's going to wreck his voice, it might not be something that we want to do live. However, in that sense, the easy route to fix that is typically what we'll do is just go, well, we'll pitch it down a semitone and see how we feel there. So a lot of the stuff actually is recorded, in a different key, and then we'll pitch it down, and whether the guitars are in C sharp, we'll tune down to C and perform the song that way. So that's another way we do things. But really, it's just at this point, with how many songs we have, it's about making sure we're playing the songs that everybody loves. But when we put new stuff out, we also want to incorporate that too, without having to put such a strain on ourselves of, well, let's play the whole new record. And like the Wounds thing is kind of like we're all having to relearn everything, and it's stressful, so it's a bit of keeping the fan favorites in there, but adding the new ones that we think will be the strongest songs from the record, and being able to, can we pull them off live well enough to do justice. I don't know if I answered your question, but I hope I did.
Well, yeah, you did.
Okay.
I'm always curious about set lists. How bands come up with their own set list.
I mean, for us, it's just been, for years, it's been kind of, we'll take whatever our last tour was, we'll take it, and we just tweak it. So we already kind of have this thing down like a well-oiled machine, and it's just a matter of, okay, let's bring in new ones, let's take this one out, let's put this here, are we doing a drum solo or not, kind of thing. So it's just essentially at this point, we just tweak what we had before.
Awesome.
For sure. And when it comes to playing live, and like you were saying before, that you were talking about singles and all that kind of stuff. Before, obviously before this current situation, but also before Restitch These Wounds officially has now become a thing, you had a couple of brand new singles that you have released to everybody as part of the Saints of the Blood, like two-song duology, I believe is how I was hearing it being called. And so talk a little bit about what the night.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk a little bit about that, because I'd also kind of like to pair this about with with having the addition of Lonnie. That's also the first that a lot of people are getting to see Lonnie in the Black Veil Brides formation, as opposed to seeing him performing individually with Andy. So just kind of talk a little bit about those singles and getting to write.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially the songs, like I said, we had these riffs. I mean, Saints of the Blood, like the main riff in the intro and like the verse. Again, that's a riff I've had all the way back to 2006, and I had this insane like version of this song that I did back then that I demoed out. And I mean, it was just an instrumental song. I had lead guitars literally over the entire thing. It was just crazy, but there was really good riffs in it. And as far as The Vengeance goes, that was another song that we had. Let's see, we didn't have it fully demoed out, but even all the way back to Wretched and Divine, we had messed with the idea of that, with trying to get a good vocal melody on it and whatnot, and just it didn't really ever make it there. It didn't seem strong enough. It didn't fit at the time for Wretched and Divine, so that was another idea that was sitting around for a long time. So basically, getting the room together, we just kind of discussed. It was the first time Lonnie was here, and the vibe. Lonnie's just such a laid back guy, and he's a great musician. And we just started kind of, okay, what can we do for these songs? So the first one we recorded was The Vengeance, and because we already kind of basically had that idea. So we restructured it out, and the song just came together really quickly, and we didn't really know what we were doing yet at the time. It was kind of like, let's do two new songs. The idea was originally we'll do a new song, we'll do a cover song, we'll put that out, and then it was like, well, forget the cover song, let's do two new ones. And I think everybody really liked working here, and it was just kind of, taking away, like, I am the producer, but I'm also a member of the band, so it's, it's an interesting position to be in, because a lot of producers can be very hands-on and like, no, we're gonna like this, we're gonna do this, or it can just kind of be like, let's capture the magic, and you guys do you, and I'm here to try to find the best parts of it. So I kind of try to be something in the middle where I'm very like, let's try this, let's try that, but I'm not ever going to put anybody's idea down. I'm open to everyone's idea and input, and I think it's great to work that way. I think it makes everything comfortable. So, I mean, that song came together really quickly, and we just tracked, and we did program drums at first, and then Saints of the Blood was, we started. I had this other song idea, like this big heavy riff and everything, and Andy was all about it. He's like, I really like this, and James came over, and we were working on it, like, where can we go with this song? Like, it wasn't a full song yet. And we spent a whole day, like, trying to get inspiration from other bands and trying to riff things out, and it just wasn't happening. And sometimes part of the process is that songs won't happen, the ideas won't come, and you kind of hit this, like, wall. And a lot of people ask me, like, advice, what do you do when you get, like, writer's block, or you don't know where to take a song? And my advice is always step away from it. Whether that's go take a 15-minute walk or go do something else, just go do something else and then come back to it. For this instance, it was, let's close this session down, and what about this idea that I've had forever? Like, what if we take this riff and I've kind of changed this riff around, and what if we build this out? And then Jinx had this, like, crazy bridge section thing that I remember he played me a long time ago. And it was like, hey, remember that crazy thing you had? What if we put that in as the bridge? Will that work here? And that we put them together, and it created Saints of the Blood, and it worked. And we tracked that here. We went and tracked drums. I don't have a drum room here, so we tracked drums at the Steakhouse in North Hollywood, where we tracked before. We did all the drums with the Bob Rock record before. We did that there. Restitch we did there, so we like to track drums there a lot. So we went in and did the 2 songs, and then I edited and mixed everything here. And after that, we realized we were all having fun doing this. It's really cool, and we were going to shoot one music video, and that turned into, well, let's just make a music video for both. And again, we didn't have like huge budgets or anything, so we kind of had to, we had to make do with what we have. And we made the videos, and they portray what they portray, and it was really fun to do them. They're just kind of like taking. It's like we took those songs. One thing that Jinx and I have always been doing this whole time is, always being like, oh, we always want to outdo ourselves with like the guitar playing. And I think this was an example of maybe going a little overboard, because when it came, we did play The Vengeance live in Mexico City in March, and that was one song I know both of us were like, ooh, oh man, all right, let's go. The intro dual leads in that are just absolutely insane, especially at the tempo that they're recorded at. It's insanely fast. It's very like, I guess Paul Gilbert, Steve Vai type string skipping arpeggio. It's just crazy. It's madness, and it's a very difficult thing to play. We pulled it off though, and we were stoked. It was really, really fun song to play, but kind of nerve-wracking a little bit. But it just kind of all came together, and we put the duology out, and then we thought, well, this is a fun idea if we just like kept doing these 2-song ideas. And that eventually turned into, okay, we're writing, and it turned into, well, we're kind of going on more of like a full concept idea here. So that turned into, well, like we'll probably put something out in a couple months, like a duology thing, but we're doing a whole concept record again. So that turned into something much more grand.
Oh, right on, man. That's awesome.
Steve, how about yourself, man? Take it away.
So, speaking of guitars, was guitar your first instrument that you learned how to play?
Yes, it was. Guitar, so, like, yeah, I got me, like, an acoustic guitar for my 10th birthday, but I hadn't really, like, gotten into it yet. It was, I think the thing that actually got me into wanting to play guitar was I was on the school bus going to school, and there was, like, the cool kids would sit in the back of the bus, and I was not one of the cool kids, and I saw one of the guys in the back had this, it was probably like a cheap Fender, like probably what a Squire Fender would be, something like that, but it was an electric guitar. I thought it was the coolest thing ever, and he was playing on the bus, and then I saw like the older kids at the school. There was like a talent show, and there was a 3-piece band, and they played some cover song. Oh, that's pretty cool. And I went home and I pulled out that acoustic guitar, and I started just like, trying to figure it out. I didn't have YouTube or anything to go look up like how do I play the guitar. I just sat there and tried to figure it out. Luckily, my dad's a musician. He plays guitar and sings and plays drums, and he saw me every day. He'd come home from work. I had the guitar in my hands, and he was like, "Oh, that was interesting," because I had it for 3 years. Like, why did I pull it out now? And he saw that I wasn't putting it down, and he's like, "Here, let me show you a couple chords." And he showed me a couple chords, and that turned into, well, I'm serious about it. I took guitar lessons for about 3 months, and I went to my lesson one day, and I was just waiting there, it was called Musician Pro Show in Boise, Idaho, and my teacher wasn't there, and I was just waiting for like a half an hour. I'm like, oh, I was supposed to have my lesson like a half an hour ago. And they're like, oh, who's your teacher? And I don't remember his name, but they're like, oh, he doesn't work here anymore. I was like, oh, okay, well, why wouldn't anybody tell me that? So that was the end of my guitar lessons, and at that point, I had probably had enough of the basics down of like kind of how to play some bar chords and power chords, and my teacher kind of taught me a cool thing of, I'm going to teach you how to play any song basically, And the first thing I learned was just playing like power chords, how to do a drop tuning, and basically like you can pretty much play like rock songs like this. I was like, okay, and I just took that and went with it, and I started listening to albums and things like. I remember my dad. You guys maybe will have heard of this thing. He got me for my birthday one time. There's a thing called a Rhythm Bandit. You ever hear that?
I have.
Okay, so yeah, it was like essentially the idea of it was you plug like a CD player into it, and then your headphones, and there's a switch on it that basically disconnect like you know when you're putting like your stereo headphones into the jack, and you just kind of stick it in there a certain way. You get like the guitar will be way louder, and it won't be in stereo, it'll be in mono, and it sounds like crap. That's essentially what this thing did. It was supposed to try to like isolate the guitar track so you could hear it better and learn the guitar parts. So I took Metallica's Black Album and stuck it through this thing and sat there and learned the entire album. And of course, I couldn't play it as well as Hetfield, but I learned it, and that's how I started learning how to play like Metallica riffs and stuff. And that's I think taught me a lot, just learning other bands' songs. And I think one thing that really took my guitar playing to the next level was this was probably back in like 2004. I started listening to like Unearth and Killswitch Engage and like those kind of bands, and they have that like intense, you know, like metal alternate picking riffs, and that's what really developed my alternate picking was Unearth, The Oncoming Storm. Like I got to give credit to those guys, and I learned that whole album front to back, and it's very technical. And then, of course, you know, getting into more lead playing was Paul Gilbert and Avenged Sevenfold and Buckethead, and getting into that. But yes, guitar was my first instrument to answer the question. I do play drums as well. I am nothing like CC on a drum kit, but I write up on the drums. You know, the first two records, I wrote the drums, but then CC took it and added his flair and his fills and everything, and really made it, you know, his thing. And the cool thing is with like working with CC as a drummer, he's my, of course, I have to say, he's my favorite drummer I've ever played with. I played with a lot of drummers, but he's always been my favorite drummer I've ever played with. And we have a very similar liking to drumming style. So I think it's something that works really well together, especially with me being in the realm of producing the stuff, because it's almost like we can read each other's minds, or I can, if we're in the studio track, we have that drum talk. You know, I can like mouth an air drum of Phil, and then he'll just go, oh, and he'll play it. And it's like we can communicate that way. And it's really cool. So, yeah, I do dabble a little bit on the drums. I'm not a great piano player. My mom was. She was absolutely insane. So she taught me a lot. She's the one that taught me how to play harmonies on guitar. Funny enough, she taught me how to do it on a guitar from a piano, though. And somehow it just made sense to me. And I was like, oh, okay. And I literally, like, just picked it up from there. But mostly I play by ear. And just, like, I've got a little bit of, like, harmony and theory, I guess, that I understand. But I'm not, like, a classically trained musician that understands everything about harmony and theory like my mom did. So I know a little bit, and I apply just to a kind of, like, you know, I sit there and figure things out when I write and compose things until I think, like, well, this sounds really cool. It's interesting.
Right on. That's really awesome.
Nice, man. For sure. Absolutely. Jason, how about yourself, brother? Why don't you chime in?
So, aside from music, is there anything else that you'd be doing or other talents? Let's say if you are not making music like you are now.
Man, other talents, I mean, as far as things that I like to do, I mean, I make music with my wife. We have an electronic project. We have a rock duo project. I mean, I'm really just, it's mostly making music, writing songs. But I mean, nowadays, yes, it is a career. People make insane money doing it, playing video games. However, I am not at the level of being like, okay, like I love Call of Duty. I play Call of Duty, but I've gotten better at it. but I'm not like these pro players that stream on Twitch and play in tournaments and win these $3 million tournaments, and they're insane. I do not know how people get that good at video games and can like I would love to be able to say, oh, I play video games for a living, but I'm just not good enough at it. I love doing it. I enjoy it. I love streaming at the TV, but I think for me that there was no plan B for me ever. It was always, this is what I'm going to do no matter what. I didn't have a backup plan, so I just I had one path, and if I wasn't going to make it, well, I had to. There was no option not to.
So is it Xbox or PS4?
Unfortunately, I am on Xbox One, but I'm looking at possibly making the switch to the PS5 when it comes out later this year.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Nice.
My
Right
kid
on.
convinced me to get an Xbox One, so
Yeah.
that's why.
I hear the
Nice.
PlayStation is much better.
Couldn't tell you. I have an
Nice.
Xbox 3 and a ColecoVision, so I don't know.
I started out with Intellivision.
Angel, how about yourself there, brother? How are we doing with the fans?
Oh, awesome. Annette Lee says, what's up, Steve? Kelly Clark, how are we doing? We're doing good, thank you. And we do have a fan question from Bridget Sullivan, who tunes in every week. Thank you for doing so. She wants to ask, Jake, what is your go-to album when you just need to chill?
Oh, that's a good question. So I don't really have a go-to album when chilling. We do have Spotify, so this is gonna sound funny. Being somebody who comes from being a like extreme metalhead, like some of my favorite bands being extremely heavy, like Lamb of God. I spend so much of my time making like rock music that when it comes to listening or putting something on in the background and just like chill out, I literally go on Spotify and I type in like chill spa music or whatever and just put that on, and it's amazing. It works wonders on just letting like relaxing and chilling out and taking like stress away. So that's kind of where I'm at in my life right now, is listening to some chill spa music in my downtime.
Okay. And I have a question, of course. It's a two-part question. You have a pre-show ritual that you do, and after the show, how do you relax after a show?
Pre-show ritual. I mean, I don't know if it's really like a ritual. It's just something that we do every show. Is Jinx and I warm up for about 45 minutes to an hour before every show, and we'll we get stage ready, and then we make sure we have enough time where we'll have at least an hour before showtime where we have these little practice amps that we take with us on tour, and we plug in and we rehearse together. We warm up. We'll basically run through, not like in real time the whole set, but we'll play through like all the technical riffs, all the solos, and some of the stuff we speed up, play like super like hyper speed fast, and we'll just go through like the whole set. And then if there's anything that we feel like, oh, let's do this, let me run this solo again, or we warm up before every show. I think that's the thing that probably every guitar player does, but it's something that I would feel very, very uncomfortable going on stage, not having the chance to warm up beforehand. It would be very stressful for me. It's always it gives me comfort having warmed up, played through all the parts. Cool, I'm ready. Let's go to the show, and it just makes it a lot more enjoyable. So I guess for me, that's my pre-show ritual.
Nice. Right on. Was there anything that you just kind of look forward to when it comes to getting off the stage?
I mean, it depends. Like sometimes, it depends how the show's going. If the energy is good, or if it's kind of being a weird show. If it's all personal things. There can be times where I'm like, oh my god, that was like my best show I've ever played, and then CC can be like, that was my worst show. So it all depends, like how everybody's show was. I mean, like for example, the Mexico City show we did in March. It was something where we got off stage, and we're like, wow, like that show went by so quick. We all were having fun. It was a blast. And in those kind of moments, you kind of have that like, oh, like I wish the show could have, like I wish we could keep going and go longer, and it wasn't over yet. Um, Probably funny enough, probably the most exciting thing now getting off stage is looking forward to that after show meal dinner.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
For sure. So, kind of staying on the topic a little bit of like live shows, but one thing that has definitely always set Black Veil Brides apart from really a lot of the other bands out there. It's always something that I really dig on when it comes to the bands that catch my eyes. You guys are incredibly visual when it comes to the performance and the look of you guys performing on stage. You know, and you've definitely changed it up over the years to keep yourselves fresh and kind of renewed. You kind of have this like, you know, apocalyptic glam thing going in the first couple of albums. You then kind of did a little bit sort of, I guess, what you call maybe more of like a Mad Max type thing, to some might consider a little bit chiller when it comes to BBB4 and then Veil. However, now with the release of Saints of the Blood, I started noticing that, like, you know, a little bit more, you know, a little bit more leather, a little bit more makeup, a little bit more look. Talk a little bit just about how you guys discuss that, because of course it's typically a band decision when it comes to that kind of stuff. Talk about how you guys felt you needed to be portrayed to the public.
I mean, essentially, like going all the way back to the beginning, like when I first met Andy, I had like shorter hair at the time, and he'd asked me like, "Hey, are you cool? Like putting on some black makeup and putting hair extensions in?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, I'm down, let's go." And so, I mean, he kind of essentially the idea was that I don't know if this is like 100% accurate, but he kind of had like the war paint idea already, or it started with just kind of smearing some black paint on. And none of us really had a lot of tattoos back then, so it was kind of the idea of like, oh, we want to be these like larger than life characters, these rock star looking guys in a band. We want to look like a band, and we kind of all developed our own, like, oh, let's smear some black paint on, and it kind of turned into a thing where we all had our own take on it, and that just kind of turned into like us creating our own designs. And the same thing happened with the eye makeup. It's changed over time. We've changed it up, expanded on our ideas, and it just kind of like we all just kind of came up with our own thing and started going with it. I think after doing that nonstop for so many years, we were using literally like latex black paint from Michael's Arts and Craft store, and it like doesn't let the skin breathe, so it would sweat it off. Our buns would just be covered with like black paint flakes, and it was a mess. And I think at a point, it just kind of got like, we kind of got tired of doing it, because you have to imagine, we have to get ready like this before every show. And when we're on tour, it's like we're playing a show every single night. And some of the times we wouldn't even shower after the show, and we would wake up the next day and still have some of the paint on, like half of it's melted off. And literally it'd just be like, all right, I'll just touch it up a little bit and then go back out on stage and do it again. So, it just became a thing of like, man, like we started to get like a little like over it, just like tired of doing it every single day. So we started to pull it back a little bit. And then I think at some point it kind of became a like, let's just kind of strip it down, like BBB4, just kind of like, let's just strip it all down and just kind of be us. And I think at some point it was kind of like, okay, well, we did that, and we've had that time away from doing it every single night, and I kind of felt like we lost a little bit of that theatrical look, and I think we all felt it like, let's start bringing it back a bit, and that turned into Veil, like, we brought like, let's bring a little bit of like the makeup back a little bit, but now it's like, especially with Free Stitch, like it's like, yeah, let's do the full thing again. And every, even Saints of Blood Vengeance, that was kind of the first thing of like, let's bring it back for those videos. And then we weren't sure, like, okay, are we gonna keep it like this? Or I think the favorite look behind the band has always been, Black Veil Brides. It's like you look at Kiss, like with the makeup or without, what are you gonna pick? right? Like so, I think it's kind of a we don't take it to the extreme of that they do, but it's kind of like become our thing where it's more often than not, maybe not so much now, but before it would always be like, oh my god, I couldn't recognize you without your war paint on, and it's like, oh, okay, that's our thing. If we have that on, 100%, like people are gonna know who we are, and I think that's an important thing about being in the band is people knowing that you're the band, and that's kind of what we've been our thing. I mean, even I think it was Dee Snider came up to us at Lollapalooza, I think it was, or many years ago, and we were getting ready to go on stage, and he came walking up and he was like, "Oh my god, wow, it's about time." Or he said something like, "I love to see that you can tell when the band showed up," and he was giving us props that we look like a band because everybody's walking around and you can't tell who's in the band or not. Nowadays everybody's tattooed, so everybody looks like they could be in the band, but we look very different from everybody else. So it just kind of became a thing of I think we wanted to bring that element back, and I think it's something that a lot of people missed just about the band. And we changed the styles every record cycle a little bit, but I think you'll see a lot more of those elements coming back in, and maybe not full blown set the world on fire, but definitely kind of like the badass leather jackets, biker gang kind of vibe.
Awesome, man. Right on. So right about this time, when we get towards like the top of the hour, just kind of like with kind of that feel of like the old school like radio shows, we usually just take a short little break just to thank some people and stuff before we start putting together the last couple of series of questions. Jake, you still have a little bit more time to kick it with us?
Yeah, sure.
Beautiful, cool, no sweat. So I just want to extend a thank you out to our sponsors, our endorsements, the guys that look out for us and support us. I want to thank Levy Metal Enterprises, Custom Guitars and Stage Props. I want to thank Twisted Vines Horror Decor out of Rhode Island. Yep, that's them right there. I want to thank Bradley Entertainment, promoter and show booker and all of their staff. And also want to thank Aces and Eights Skateboards out of Western Maryland as well. So I really appreciate you guys as always. You always look out for us. We always try to look out for you, and we appreciate it. This is a family show with swears. So we appreciate that very much. Thank you so much to the fans. We really appreciate all of you guys always tuning in and looking out for us, so we can continue to do this for you. And again, thank you again, Jake, as well for joining us this evening.
No problem.
Cool. Psycho Steve, how about yourself there?
All right. Question to go. Is there a band that you haven't toured with that you've always wanted to tour with?
That's a good question. Well, I think one of my bands I always wanted to tour with, which we did, was Avenged Sevenfold. I thought that was very cool. I would love to tour with Metallica. We have not toured with Metallica. I think that would be amazing.
Hey, so Lars, get your head out of your ass and here. I know.
And you too, James. Come on.
Yeah, it's over, fucker. All right, good.
Come on, guys, look out for our alumni here. That's
all right, awesome. Metallica, right on. Nice.
That definitely would be a cool show. I could definitely see that for sure. Jason, how about yourself there, brother?
So, you've played a lot of venues. What would you consider your favorite place that you've played? It doesn't have to even be in the U.S. It could be international.
I think one place that always sticks out in my mind is Brixton Academy in London, England. It's just a massive venue. It's always such a insane show to put on there because we get to have pyro and the firework and whatnot. So it's always a really fun show to look forward to. Getting to have the pyro and whatnot, it's always fun. So definitely Brixton Academy is definitely, if not number one, it's up there for sure.
Nice.
Are
there
definitely good, absolutely. Especially when we're talking about bands like the Metallicas and the Kisses of the world.
Yep.
Sure, absolutely. Angel, take it away, my good dude.
Yes. My question is, what was the first album that you bought, and you remember the time in '91 when the music world changed from glam metal to alternative? What was your take on that happening?
It was a little before my time. Like growing up, I listened basically to whatever my dad was listening to. So I would hear a lot of like my dad's favorite band was Led Zeppelin. So I would hear a lot about Led Zeppelin. This was before I even picked up a guitar. So I would be, growing up hearing that. I would hear the classic rock on the radio, Guns N' Roses and Van Halen, the Scorpions, all that kind of stuff. And I remember hearing that stuff. Like my dad did construction, and I would go to the job sites with him sometimes and help him out and like cleaning up scrap wood. And I would hear the radio stations that he would listen to and those bands. So I grew up hearing all those dual lead guitars and the solos and everything, and I always like had an ear for that. I never got into the grunge, so the real first like album as far as playing guitar, I had listened to the band's Korn, like I had influence from friends in school. It was like everything from Blink-182, Green Day to Korn and Limp Bizkit, like the new metal stuff. The one that stuck out for me was when I discovered Metallica, and I did discover them because, like I said, it was a little before my time, but the Black Album. So that was the first Metallica album that I bought, and that's what really got me into guitar playing. And like I talked about the Rhythm Bandit and everything, and learning that album. So that definitely was what inspired me to become a guitar player. And I specifically remember being like, I want to know how to make my guitar sound like that. And I went. I think it was all the way from back then that I was already. I didn't maybe necessarily know at the time, but I was already into. I had an ear for production and wanting to understand what it takes to get that, because when I was a kid, I didn't know any better, and I thought, oh, I need to change my guitar pickup, and then I'll sound like that. And so I saved up a lot of money. I bought a Seymour Duncan pickup, and I had it installed in my guitar, and I picked it up from the music store. I came home, and I was like, I'm going to sound like Metallica now. And I plugged it in, and I strum a chord, and it sounds no different at all, other than I don't have a lot of screechy, annoying feedback. And I'm like, what? And that was the first thing that clicked. I was like, man, like, okay, there's a lot more to this. And I was taking guitar lessons at this time. It was within this like 3 months I took lessons, and my teacher had this little chord. I don't know what it was called. This was a long time ago. It's this little chord, like a FedEx unit. And when I asked him, I'm like, how do I get the guitar tone that sounds like Metallica? He's like, oh, he kind of like laughs, like, well, here, like plug it in this thing. I'll show you this cool thing. And it's got all these like modeled versions of different amps and stuff, even way back then. And he plugged me into one that sounded pretty awesome, I thought at the time, and kind of had that like heavy gain, mid scoop tone. And I was like, wow, this is cool. So okay, it's about the amp, and also, and he just kind of explained like, yeah, it's a little bit of everything. You got to have a good guitar, the pickup. It's about how you play. It's the player mostly, but it's your amp and everything. So he started explaining this to me, and from a very young age, 13, 14 years old, I was into the production side of things already, like trying to understand what it takes to give you a good sound. And it's funny to think, like 13-year-old me, if I could tell him anything, be like, oh, don't worry, one day you're gonna make a record with the guy that made that album, so you'll like, not only like learn things, but if I were to tell 13-year-old me, you're actually going to be showing the producer Bob Rock who made that record, you're going to be showing him some new tricks that he might not know about, which I did. He ended up buying a Kemper profiling amp during the process of making that record, and it was pretty funny. We got to just go back and forth, and I learned some old school things, and I showed him some new school things, and it was really fun to make that record.
Sweet.
That's so bad, absolutely.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like talking about like guitar and gear and stuff like that, because I'm always a nerd for guitar gear and stuff like that. I love the fact that you're so into Metallica, and you're talking about learning those riffs and what that the Black Album meant for you is also because the guitars that you've been playing now with Schecter, they're definitely that Explorer style.
Yeah.
Definitely they're used to seeing with that. And I'd love for you to just kind of talk gear a little bit for a second. With Schecter now, it looked like you used to be with BC Rich, or was that just the guitars that you chose to play at the time?
Well, basically, like when we first started out, I've had my Schecter C1, which is sitting right back here. This recorded the first. We recorded the first 4 Black Veil records with that guitar, and I bought that guitar when I lived in Minnesota. I went to Guitar Center in St. Paul in 2001, and I bought that off the floor, and I took it home. And I think about a year later, no, that was in 2001. It was about 3 years later, I got a hold of some EMG 81s, and EMG 8185, and I stuck them in the guitar, and that changed everything for me, having the Schecter and the EMGs in it. So this was like the first good guitar that I bought. And then when it came to Black Veil and getting like a guitar endorsement, like we needed a guitar to go on tour, I guess our manager reached out to everybody, and nobody really understood the band at first, but BC Rich, I guess, did. So they came on and said, like, yeah, we're down, let's work together. And we got to go and pick up a bunch of guitars, and of course I went with the Mockingbird shape. It's a great shape, still love it. And we ended up doing some signature guitars with them, but there was a lot of struggles. It didn't quite ever come out the correct way. And I know at the time that company had a lot of internal issues going on. I know that BC Rich is back now, and the guitars look amazing as ever. So it was just kind of a thing of, we used what we could get at the time. And then as things weren't really working out that great to our liking, I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about them, but we felt like we needed more, and we wanted to have signature guitars that we could put out and feel confident about. And we met with Schecter. The guys were all amazing, and they, we had lunch with them, and they were just like, yeah, we're down. We were like, we want to. Like I told them, I have this guitar. I've had it since 2001, and they knew exactly what I was talking about. And they were just like, yeah, let's do it. We went back. We talked about signature models, and 90 days later, James and I both had our signature models, like prototypes in hand, and they've been super cool with like any idea. I'm like, hey, I think I want to do this now. They're always down to switch it up and change it, and even so, to go into the E shape, the Explorer looking shape. So I had this idea to do their PC shape, which is like a Telecaster shape, but I wanted to take that like diamond plate metal look and put it as the finish of the guitar. So they made one. Well, they made 2 actually, and I have one of the 2. It's got some issues. It's a great guitar. It's an actual metal plate countersunk into the body. The problem is we got it back, and the EMGs were mounted directly to this metal plate that fills the entire guitar. So active pickups mounted to a big piece of metal is a little bit of an issue for some feedback issues. So the guitar plays great. I love it. As we were doing that guitar, and I had just gotten it, I was going to NAMM, and the night before I went to NAMM to do a signing with Schecter, I decided, I want to see the new stuff that they have coming this year. And I saw they were doing the first one. They did the E shape, the Sunburst E1, and I saw that shape, and I went, oh, like, no, I got to change everything. So Jinx and I went to the signing, and I talked to Mark. I was like, hey, you guys got that new E1 shape on? He's like, you want to switch to it, don't you? I was like, yeah, can I check it out? He's like, sure. And they were all about it. They weren't like mad or anything. It was like, they already knew. They're like, yeah, of course. And I set up a meeting. We went. We designed the first one, and another 90 days later, I had it. And they've just always been super, super cool to work with. So not only are they great guitars that I've played forever, but just as like human beings, they're great people.
That's awesome. And then it's just a short follow-up when it comes to this before I kick it up to Steve. You were at least up until like the lockdown when you were doing your tours. You were doing this cool thing with your fans where they could, I guess, buy one of your guitars, meet you, and meet the band like at a chosen gig. Talk a little bit about that, and is that a program you're planning to continue?
Yeah, I mean, so the stage played guitars, I started seeing more and more people do it, like Nicky Six and Chris Kale from Five Finger. And I started to sit there and go, well, why have I never thought of this? This is awesome. So when we toured in 2018, I had the ability to, we had I don't know if we had a shared trailer or what, but we had like a trailer with all the gear in it. So there was room to have a crap load of guitars in there. And I just reached out to Schecter and was like, hey, can I do this? And they said, like, absolutely. And so basically, I just put out the idea of, hey, I didn't know how I was going to do, but every show on the tour, we're doing the Shopify store, and you can purchase the guitar that I will play on stage that night. I'll sign it any way you want, before or after the show. Come hang out with me after. We'll do photos. We'll hang out for a bit, chat, and some of the guitars I signed before and played them on stage that way. Some people wanted me to sign after in person with them. And it was really, really cool. It was great, a great experience. I think people really enjoyed it. And I absolutely 100% would love to keep continuing doing it. And I will. I get a lot of people asking me if I'll do it like on international tours in like Europe or Australia. And I got to figure out how to make that happen. Because we have to fly our gear there. So it's like, it gets real expensive to fly a bunch of guitars there. But it's something that I need to look into and figure out how to do. But yes, to answer the question, I will 100% keep doing it because I think it's a great thing. Me growing up, if I could have known I could have went to a Metallica concert and bought James Hetfield his guitar that he played on stage that night, I would absolutely do it.
Right on, man. Absolutely. Psycho Steve, take it away, bro.
Okay. All right. I used to be in the car business.
Okay.
Of course. And I am a bit of a car enthusiast.
Okay.
What kind of car do you drive?
I just got a Tesla.
Sweet.
Nice.
What's one?
It's the Model 3, the extended range dual motor one. So
Awesome.
yeah, it's cool. I like it. It's fun. It's interesting going. I've never had an electric car before, so it's interesting. But I gotta tell you, man, the thing's ballsy. Like, I know if you're a car guy, you're probably like, oh, you like engines and like muscle cars and stuff. Is what I would assume. But I gotta say, it's the acceleration on these things is crazy. It's like a roller coaster. Like when you floor it, like the thing goes.
Yeah, I'm in technology, but I'm also a tool guy, but I can definitely respect Tesla because of just the technology behind it and what they do. Not just interiorly, but exteriorly. The whole Tesla gamut is just insane. So,
Right on, man. Jason, how about yourself, brother?
Yeah, Tesla, that Elon Musk is going places.
Yeah.
So,
he's richer than Warren Buffett now.
yeah, I heard about that. So Jake, do you have any advice for any of your fans or anybody in general that's musically inclined as to trying to make music their career?
All right. So my opinion would be, first of all, if you're interested in learning an instrument or to sing, etc., you got to put in the time. It's time consuming. Whether you're into playing guitar or producing electronic music, it doesn't matter what it is. It all requires just an assload of time that you have to dedicate to learning whatever it is. I'm somebody that back in 2010 looked at electronic music and went like, oh, make music on a laptop, blah blah blah, whatever. and coming to like now, where I've spent the last 2-3 years learning how to produce electronic music, and especially like if you go into the heavier genres like hard trap or dubstep, where you're doing sound design, it's not just pressing buttons on a computer like some people might think it is. It's very complicated. It's synthesis. It's also a complicated process. Just like it is to pick up a guitar and learn how to play it. It all takes a lot of time. and it takes time to get good at it. So you have to dedicate the time. That's the number one thing. You got to put in the time. The more time you put in, the quicker you're going to get there. The quicker you're going to get better at it. The complicated thing about being in a band is you also have to find those other members that are doing the exact same thing, putting in the time, have the vision, have the creativity, have the ability to write and play like what you want to do, or if not, maybe not even necessarily be a writer, but be able to keep up with you and play if you put in that time. So it's like we like to say it's like a marriage. It's a band is a marriage. You're with these guys, and you have to work out everything. And if you're pursuing just being a solo vocalist or whatever it is, you gotta put in the time. I always say, like, for any guitar players and anybody out there, definitely do not overlook the power of getting into recording and music production. You don't have to get into mixing right away and learning how to mix and master your own songs. Just get into the idea of get a cheap interface and a laptop or a desktop computer, whatever it is. Get a record, get a DAW, get Pro Tools, get a Reaper, get Ableton, whatever it is. If you're going to record live instruments, I recommend Pro Tools. I also use Ableton, but I always use Pro Tools for recording real instruments and vocals and drums and everything like that. So just record, put your ideas down. It's a place where you can store all of your riffs, your ideas. And for me, that was such a crucial thing in my writing, because I could then record a riff and I could go back and listen to it and get the flow and the idea of where I can take it, or put a rhythm down and I can just loop it and start like, where am I going to take my solo to? Let me write a lead over it. And being able to like compose and put together musical ideas is huge. Then otherwise, just having like an amp in your iPhone and a voice note. Voice notes are great too for jotting down ideas quick. But I can't imagine with technology nowadays, you don't need a multi-million-dollar studio to go record. You can literally record a great sounding production on a laptop computer with the right tools and the right knowledge. But to be limited to like putting down a guitar riff on a voice note and then trying to like you can't write a song that way, in my opinion. You got to have a place to record it down. So I will always say get into music production as quick as you can, as well as your guitar playing or your singing or whatever. If you're a singer, you want to record your vocals. You want to learn how to make your voice sound awesome, not just through an iPhone, or whatever. That's my opinion. I think it's a very useful tool. It will make you much more valuable in having, when it comes to putting together a band or whatever, working in the studio, being a studio musician. I think music production is. That's why.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Angel, how about yourself there, brother, and how are our fans doing?
Well, Miguel Vergara wants to say hi, Jake, and Pam G as well wants to say hi, Jake.
What's up?
My question is, if you could elaborate more, how was it working with Bob Rock, and how was it recording up in Vancouver?
Well, I mean, it was a lot of fun. Like I said, it's probably like the most laid back record that we've ever made. We did have more time. I think the end result, maybe the record didn't fully sound like how we wanted to come out. I think when it came to the mix, it was a little bit like, it's not bad, but I think it's a little bit maybe dated, because we kind of did things the old school way. That whole album was mixed on an SSL console, and we did it in the same room that the Black Album was mixed in. And we were so into that idea of we're making a record with the guy that did the Motley Crue records and the Metallica stuff. Like, let's do it like that. So, he took us to Vancouver, and we recorded vocals. We were up there for 3 weeks, and it was a great experience. It was fun. Getting to the idea behind that was. He wanted to get us out of our home life, where we don't have to worry about, I gotta feed the dogs and take the trash out tonight and all this stuff. It was, we're gonna go to Vancouver, and our focus will be on the album every single day, and there's not gonna be distractions. So that was kind of the concept behind that, and I know that's something that he likes to do. So basically, how that record was, Bob Rock is a producer who's not so much into the songwriting. He's much more into, getting those guitar tones and the drum sounds and much more into that like production, and then maybe like throwing in ideas and elements here and there of where to take the song sonically. So as far as like a producer, like he's definitely different in the realm of like say totally opposite of John Feldman, who's very much a singer-songwriter producer, where he's very heavily influenced in the songwriting. And Bob Rock was kind of more like we spent 10 days in Steakhouse in North Hollywood tracking drums. So we tracked drums on the whole record first, and then we spent like 3 days just hitting every amplifier we could find and profiling all these amps on the Kemper. And that was just kind of like a nerdy, super cool thing to do. To be like, we get to spend 3 days in the studio with Bob Rock just nerding out on guitar tone and like profiling amps. It was insane. It's like, like I said, 13-year-old me would be like, what? No way. So it was a very cool thing. And just getting to hear his stories, and then, even, I can fanboy a little bit too. He had like all these stems from the Black Album. Like he was playing us just the solo drum stem from Sad But True, and just the guitar stem, and he was like, he got someone to the Kemper. He was like, he pulled out the stem for Sad But True guitars, the rhythm guitars, and he was like, how do we profile this? And I was like, I don't know. I don't think we can. It's like it has to be an amp. Like we have to plug it into the Kemper and play it. Like I don't think we can do that. So he's like, oh, there's got to be a way. We're trying to send like the guitar stem out of the console into the Kemper, and it was just like, it was great. It didn't work, but it was super cool getting to like hear these things that I never could have thought I would hear like this, and from the guy who recorded it. Bob Rock's a great dude, super down to earth guy, very fun to be around, and the record was very fun to make. And overall, I just think that was probably definitely like the most laid back record we've ever made. Bob Rock's from Canada. He's Canadian and he lives in Hawaii, so I don't know how much more laid back he can get. But one of the other funny things, it kind of like it gave me like a little pat on my own back, was when it came to doing guitars and bass. Bob Rock, like we basically had the budget where we tracked drums, and I did a lot of the guitars on my own for Wretched and Divine, and Bob Rock knew that I can track it all. So he went back to Hawaii, or I don't know, I'm guessing, assuming he went back to Hawaii to go home. And for about a month and a half, we had all the drums done. I ended up actually editing the drums on that whole record, which I didn't know I was going to have to do, because I got the drum files, like the drive, and I went to start tracking, and I was like, this is weird, like this seems a little off, like my playing's not like super tight. And I went in, I took a closer look, I'm like, oh man, and then I started pulling up every song, and I'm like, oh, like his engineer didn't edit the drums, like they were comped, like Bob comped them for what he thought the drum take should be, but nothing was edited. So I was like, well, I don't want to go for that crazy organic feel, so I edited the drums on the whole record, and I just took it upon myself to even change some of Bob's drum comps, because it just didn't make sense to me. So I was like, maybe I'm overstepping my boundary here, but I'm going to do it anyway because I think this is better like this. And so I edited the drums, I changed some of his stuff, I tracked all the guitars, and everybody's like, oh, you better make sure your guitars are in tune. You're doing a record with Bob Rock. I'm like, oh, don't worry. I'm pretty sure that I will make sure the guitars are in tune more than he will. And we went to Vancouver, took a drive, we went to the Warehouse Studios, and plugged it in, and Bob checked in with me once. Like he was like, send me every song. I want to hear everything. I sent him the first song I did, and he's like, everything sounds great. And I never sent him anything else after that. He didn't even ask for anything. We went to Vancouver, and he listened to everything. He's like, everything sounds great. This is amazing. So that for me was kind of like a little boost of confidence. Like, I think I've got what it takes to do this.
Just one more question I get, because I'm also a Bob Rock fan. Did you get a chance to like take a picture with him? Just talk music stuff.
I mean, we did like a 4-part docuseries during that record too. I think it's on YouTube. So there's like I think it's 4 parts. So it's like all behind the scenes stuff in the studio that we did back then. So I mean, it's not really a picture, but there's a bunch of videos of us working in the studio together. What was the other question?
Did you get a chance to like take a picture with him? Like, I know it's a silly question, but like this.
I think we probably I mean, we had a few pictures taken there. That actually, when we were in pre-production for the first week before we started the record, we did a week of pre-production, just kind of get the vibe and see if it was going to work. And we were doing pre-production at Mate's Rehearsal Studios, and Paul Stanley was rehearsing there with something that he was performing in, and I guess like the story goes that Kiss always kind of had like a grudge or something because they wanted Bob to produce a record with them, and Bob wouldn't do it or something. So Paul Stanley came in the studio, and he's like, "Oh," he cracked the joke. "Oh, I didn't recognize you guys without your makeup." You know, cracked that. We ended up getting a photo together with Bob Rock and Paul Stanley. So to answer that question, and we can add Paul Stanley in there too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's like a fun little thing just from Bob Rock and Metallica that just kind of hit me. I got to ask. It might be back at his house, but did he show you or have the bass with him that he played when he was the bass player for Saint Anger?
I don't think so.
Yeah. No worries, dude. Couldn't help myself. Just figured out. Well, we're on the Bob Rock topic, and I know that he's technically one of the bass players for Metallica when it comes to the album, so I couldn't help but ask.
Yeah.
But one thing we definitely got to cover real quick for the fans, Jake, if you don't mind, because I know there's a ton of people out there that are curious. As little by little we chip away at getting back live music, you guys were scheduled for a pretty badass tour currently with Raven Black and In This Moment, but I actually do have a ticket for. We would love to hear whatever you can tell us about the potential status for that tour.
Well, we already have some things like our Australian dates, some European shows that have been rescheduled already for next year. We are, we're hoping that next year everything will be good to go, and we basically had plans to tour all year into 2021. So essentially, we're looking at right now, okay, we're making a new record. We're kind of getting on the second half of the year here, and things aren't really looking any better as far as getting mass gatherings back together yet. So we're shooting for the idea of being able to just start it same time next year. I can't confirm it, but that's kind of the tentative thing as of right now. Is we're looking to reschedule. Basically, just let's take this year what it was supposed to be and flop it on next. But I know things are a little bit different because our Australian dates are now earlier in the year than they would have been. So it can fluctuate here and there. But I wish I had more info. I wish I could say this is when it's happening, but we just don't know yet.
No, absolutely. Like speaking down here in Maryland, and the guys are all familiar with this because they all work the same festival along with me. Is that the only surviving festival right now in Maryland is what's known as the M3 Festival. It's basically it's probably what you would consider the biggest festival in the country that's dedicated to like 80s glam style.
Okay.
So far, that thing's scheduled for the early September after getting knocked back from like May, and things are still dropping off before it and behind it. So even that one, I mean, I'm stoked for it, but there's still that little part of me that's like, don't get your hopes up, bro. You still have to wait and see because the big picture is it's all about the health of the bands and the fans. So.
Absolutely,
for sure. So we're hitting right about that time, Jake. So we thought we would put a nice little bow on it as we kind of send it around. Psycho, do you have anything on your brain, man, to finish up with Jake?
That's a question I have. Do you have a favorite song that you wrote or recorded?
I wouldn't be able to pick a favorite. That's too hard of a question. There's I don't know how we just pick one song.
Fair enough.
Choosing one of his children.
I already have two, so I can only get two.
Absolutely. Jason, how about yourself, brother?
So, if you're out somewhere and you hear one of your songs come on the radio, do you listen to it or do you turn it off?
I mean, that's not something that like really happens very often. If that happens, I'm usually in a situation where I don't have the power to turn it off. But no, I actually think it's pretty cool. Like, we've been on tour before, and like some of the guys will go to a gym or something, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you guys can work out here today or whatever." And we'll be sitting there. It always catches me off guard though, because I don't expect to hear like when I'm out somewhere, and then I'm like, "Wait, the song I recognize it. Why do I recognize it?" Like, "Oh wait, that's my band." Like, you know, it's weird, but it's very cool. But yeah, like being in a gym and your song comes on, it's like, "Oh hell, yeah, that's awesome!" And it like gets you pumped up and stuff. But it does happen, and it's always like it's exciting. I don't think it ever gets old.
Nice.
Jason, pass to you. Sorry, the other Jason. Angel, pass to you.
Yes, well, just a couple of comments from the fans. Princess Amber says hello.
Hello,
And Crystal also says hi, Jake.
hello, Crystal.
We always acknowledge the fans and what they have to say.
Yeah, of course.
They would not say hi to you, Psycho. They would say hi to Jake. You already have a fancy hi to you.
Just one thing.
Absolutely. Any final question from yourself, Angel?
Nope. Final question.
Absolutely. Actually, I got a text real quick from my friend's daughters. My buddy, his two girls, Juliet and Kaylee, are big Black Veil Brides fans, Jake, and they wanted to say thank you and wanted to know if you would say hi.
Hello, how are you guys? I hope you're doing well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. No, we appreciate it, man. Like Angel said, we're very fan friendly and we like to look after everybody. But Jake, man, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate you taking the time, in your late afternoon to get to do our show and talk about the upcoming record, what you've done with the history of Black Veil Brides, and a little bit about what you like to do in your private time, man. We really appreciate you taking the time, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you, Jake.
Be safe, okay?
All right, you guys too.
Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of the Metal Summit. We appreciate all you rebels and wild ones in the Black Veil Bride Army. You guys are great, as always. The Metal Summit fans, we couldn't do it without you. For Psycho Steve, for Jason, Angel, and myself, Jay, thank you so much. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Check us out next week. The guest announcement will be shortly. And enjoy the rest of your week. Take care. We love you. We'll see you in a little bit.
Thank you.
You are listening to the Metal Summit, your source for all things